Hello, welcome into another edition of Ranking the Games here. All right. So today we got one where I feel like I really need to talk about it and share my thoughts on these games with you. It's for a variety of reasons, but the main one being that we got some real gems here, and if you haven't played them, you really need to. The other reason being is that there are some really bad games here. And if you guys know anything, of course, about like the retro gaming scene, trying to buy these games, and I'm talking about the bad ones too, okay? It's like trying to find some of these bad Turtles games. Do not do it. Don't waste your money. It's not worth it. There's a lot of bad games in here, for real. So I think it's important that we go over which games are actually worth playing. And also, I'll give you some details as to how you can play some of these games. Now, of course, I'm an 80s kid, hence the name ThunderSteve85. The 85 is for the year I was born, 1985. And so I grew up with the Ninja Turtles. My childhood is pretty synonymous with the Turds, as we used to call them. TURDS, because, it's funny as a kid to call them turds, right? But nothing but love for the Ninja Turtles. I grew up with the original cartoon, and I believe the original one was probably the best. It had the best, I thought, animation, best voice acting. Shredder's voice, especially in the original Turtles, I thought was the best one. And of course, that's when it was fresh, you know what I mean? You had fresh ideas. It wasn't a bunch of rehashed stuff or trying to, reinvent the animation wheel just for the sake of relaunching the Turtles. So I was there basically for the original launch, right? Since then, how many Turtles have we seen, right? How many different animation styles? I mean, it's been relaunched, rebranded, rebooted more times than I can count. I still love the Turtles. I'm looking forward to the next movie. I think it was, Seth? Was it Seth Green? I don't think it was Seth Rogen. I think it was Seth Green is the one who's behind it. So I'm pretty excited. I feel like he is closer probably to my age. I'm guessing he's probably got a few years on me. But he grew up in that era, so he experienced it. He's probably got a lot of love for it. And I got to believe it's in good hands. So without further ado, we're going to go over this. Now, I set this tier list up as far as the rankings. So if you know Turtles, then you know these rankings, right? Anchovy pizza, that's an F, right? Because that's the worst thing ever. No one wants anchovies on their pizza, especially Ninja Turtles. So that's going to be your F ranking. Bossa Nova. That is a term used, of course, in Ninja Turtles. And if you are to Google what Bossa Nova means in the Ninja Turtles universe, it means uncool, among other things. I think it was uncool and uninteresting. So there are going to be some Bossa Nova games. There are going to be some anchovy pizza games, which is why I made sure we had good Turtles references here for you. And from there, basically the Radical is going to be your B ranking. Cowabunga is going to be your A tier, A ranking. And Turtle Power, man, nothing beats Turtle Power, right? We all know this. That's going to be your S tier, okay? And thankfully, there are some S tier games in here, no doubt. And there's even a recent one. So, without further ado, guys, here we go. So the first one is TMNT. Of course, this was based on the movie that came out. The movie was pretty good, actually. It was pretty good. Again, I grew up with the original movie, and I really liked that art style. I'm not a fan really of CGI, but it's pretty unavoidable these days, as we know. And some CGI can be good. Either way, I don't want to get too much into the movies because then this video will go on forever. We don't want that. I'm trying to cut down the time on these, okay? So TMNT, this game is not good, okay? Again, remember, Bossa Nova is going to be like a D ranking. So TMNT is going to get a D. Now, next one we have is Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, Turtles in Time. How cool is this game? First off, you can play it on the Super Nintendo. You can play it on the arcade. I have the arcade out here in my actual barcade. Not in my office, but in my actual barcade. You know, I have the Ninja Turtles arcade one up, and it also comes with Turtles in Time. And Turtles in Time is an amazing game. I mean, it's exactly what it sounds like. You get to travel in time. You can go to the past, you go to the future in the actual Turtles game. So it was really cool. Totally built off the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles arcade game formula. It was the sequel to essentially the arcade game, or you could call it like the sequel to, or one of the sequels to the Ninja Turtles arcade game, or Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 2 for the NES. Long story short, guys, this game is absolutely amazing. You would love it. You need to play it. The other way you can play it is by the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Cowabunga Collection, which you can get on the Switch, and you can get on PS4, PS5. Not sure on Xbox. I don't see why not, but you're going to have to Google that one. So, Turtles in Time, no doubt, it's an S tier game. It's one of the best beat 'em ups of all time. Next we have Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, the Radical Rescue. So this is Turtles 3 for Game Boy. The Game Boy games were not great, okay? However, Radical Rescue was pretty cool. It actually kind of felt like a little Metroidvania-ish for the time. And again, it was much different than Turtles 1 and 2 for the Game Boy. So Turtles 3 Radical Rescue, it was pretty rad for what it was. So it is totally going to get a radical ranking. I mean, how can it not? The word radical was in the actual subtitle of the game, right? It was pretty good. It was honestly pretty good. So radical is fair. Now, our other two Game Boy Turtles games, not good. We're going to go with the first one here, which was Fall of the Foot Clan. Now, I will say, you guys will probably notice this too. The box art on all of these Turtles games were really cool, especially the Game Boy. You can see the box art here is actually pretty reminiscent of the comic books. So I thought that was pretty cool. This game was not good, though. It really struggled with, I think, the technical limitations, but I want to say it wasn't really the tech limitations of the Game Boy. More or less, it was, hey, these game developers are still figuring out how to tap into the power of the Game Boy, and this is one of the earliest titles on the Game Boy. And if I remember, it really suffered, guys, from like the frame rate. Now, again, you can play all three of the Game Boy games are on the Ninja Turtles Cowabunga Collection, which I'll probably reference a few times in here. But if you don't have it, you should totally get it. If you like collecting trophies, like PlayStation trophies, it's really fun to go back and like actually try to beat these games and get the trophies. And I'll talk about that again a little bit more in a few, but we're going to go ahead and go Bossa Nova ranking for the other two Game Boy games. So they're not Fs, okay? But they're pretty damn close. Next we have Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, the Hyper Stone Heist. So this game was really cool. Again, really cool box art. I remember seeing this on the store shelves at Blockbuster. And this was like the first Turtles game on the Sega Genesis. So this was really cool. For me, it was unexpected because, you know, I had only seen Turtles games on Nintendo consoles. So I was super excited. I didn't know what to expect, guys, because you got to remember there was no internet back then. So the only way you're going to know anything about this game is if you read something in a magazine, be it like EGM, Electronic Gaming Monthly, or your Game Pro. There was a handful back then. But I didn't really know anything about it, so I didn't know what to expect. Of course, it didn't matter because it's a new Turtles game. Super excited. Rented it immediately the day I saw it. And if I recall, Hyperstone Heist is like almost like a best of, like a compilation in a sense of a lot of the levels in the other Turtles games that came out on the NES. I don't think it uses any levels from Turtles in Time. It was just based on the NES games. But of course brings it up to Sega Genesis graphical sound and quality. We're using that blast processing of the Sega Genesis. So this was really cool. It's definitely better than Radical. It's not Turtle Power because really this is like I would say maybe like a remaster a little bit, but not quite. It didn't have a ton of levels. It's definitely Cowabunga, guys, okay? Totally you should play it. Everything Radical and up needs to be played. Bossa Nova can be played if you are a diehard Turtles fan. But again, some of these games I would not play if you have to basically find the game physically and play it. Like these Game Boy Turtles games, you can play them on the Cowabunga collection. So play them on that. But don't go out there and try to find the physical cartridge. It's going to be one, tough, but two, you're going to get taken advantage of financially. It's going to be very expensive. Retro gaming scene is super expensive from what I hear right now. I have all my retro games I want, so I'm not out there buying any. I bought them 20 plus years ago. I bought them when I was in like middle school and high school. All right, so next we have Nickelodeon, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. As you can see, based on this box art, new animation style, right? So again, like I said, Turtles is getting rebooted all the time, man. New look, everything. So this is when Nickelodeon, I think, got the license. Maybe they had it before. Don't quote me on it. Not a good game. I'm going to go honestly with the anchovy pizza. It sucks. It's really bad. It's not even Bossa Nova. Sorry if you're a fan. Next, we have, and I think this is when Ubisoft, if I recall, Ubisoft had the license here. Again, it's foggy because these games weren't great. Next, we have Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 2 Battle Nexus. And this is for the, looks like we're talking the DS version here. These games weren't good, but they weren't, I don't know if they're anchovy pizza, but they're probably Bossa Nova. You could go either way, guys. We'll give it Bossa Nova, okay? So we'll go Bossa Nova here. We have the Turtles Arcade Attack. Again, it wasn't that great. It's going to go under the Bossa Nova. A lot of the portable Turtles were pretty unforgettable. It's crazy to think that as far as portable Turtles goes, we might have peaked at Radical Rescue, which is wild. Okay, next we have the Turtles 3. So there were 3 Turtles games, if I recall here. Which one is this? Okay, this one. And I remember this one here. So one thing that was cool is I think regular Turtles, the first one, when it came out on GameCube, unlockable was Turtles 2, the arcade game. And I'm not 100%. I would have to Google it right now. I'm not going to do it in the middle of the video, of course. So going off of that knowledge, it gets radical. Only because you can play Turtles 2 as part of this game. And I believe it was the arcade version, not the NES version. So that was the first time you could play the arcade Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles on a console. Was when it came out on GameCube. And it was, I don't think it came from the beginning. I think it was unlockable like after you beat the game. But that could have been Turtles 2. I can't remember. So this is what we're going to do, guys. We're going to say they're both under the Radical ranking. And Turtles 3 is going to go Radical. These weren't horrible games. If I recall, like they were beat 'em up games and they did pretty well, and the camera work was pretty decent. Because you got to remember, these all came out during the GameCube, PS2, Xbox era. And so 3D games were still trying to figure out how to get the camera correct. Obviously, 3D first rolled out with the N64, Sega Saturn, PS1, so on and so forth. And that's when a lot of these game companies really struggled to take the formulas that worked, the games that worked in 2D, and transplant them into 3D. And again, these games weren't bad, but what I recall is the enemy variety and the worlds were pretty bland. But the gameplay was decent enough to be Radical, okay? Like, I would revisit these Turtles games, actually, just to see how they hold up today. If they were on the Cowabunga collection, I would have played them. All right, next. So this one's kind of controversial because this was the first Ninja Turtles video game. It was interesting because if you look at the box art, there's 4 turtles on there, and you would think it would be, Leo, Don, Mike, and Raph, right? Well, it's not. It's actually all 4 of the biggest asshole turtle, Raphael, who's, total jerk, as we know. That's his character, right? But for some reason, he's the only one on the box art, which was really weird. Growing up, fond memories of this game, I think because it was the first Turtles game, and turtle power was at a fever pitch. And this game, came out probably too early, meaning it should have stayed in the oven longer. They should have worked on it longer. But again, when you release a game back in the day, you can't patch it later on, right? That's the game. It's never going to change. And so you end up sometimes loving a game that isn't great, okay? It's definitely not bossa nova, but it's totally rad. Okay, it's totally rad, and it's a very hard game. It's very cryptic. There's a lot of things that you won't figure out how to do unless you probably look it up online. This is one of the games that I beat much, much later on in life, and it was because I was absolutely determined to beat it. It was one of those bucket list games that you're like, I'm going to beat this game one day. So one thing about it is the music in the game too. Really good. The title screen music, which you'll hear in this video, and the overworld theme for the first stage. I don't know why, but you ask a lot of old dudes like me, and they'll tell you the same thing. The soundtrack in that Turtles game was fantastic. So next we have a extremely iconic Ninja Turtles, for sure, the most iconic Turtles game here, which is Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, the arcade game. So I remember playing this at Peter Piper Pizza growing up. Of course, back then you could play games with quarters or 1 token. And we played so much Turtles. It was 4 players. There's pizza grease on the buttons and on the joysticks. And that was part of the experience, you could walk into a Peter Piper Pizza. There could be no pizzas in the oven. But if you go up and play the Turtles game, it's going to smell like pizza in front of the Turtles game because there's probably so much pizza grease and oils on the actual arcade machine, which is hilarious. And again, it's just a time you had to live in. The actual cabinet art of the arcade is iconic. The April O'Neil in the yellow jumpsuit. And again, I have this arcade game. I have it in my barcade. And I have the arcade placed on the end, facing outwards, so you can actually see the cabinet art because I love it so much. And of course, the game is it's amazing. It was probably the peak, man, the peak growing up of beat 'em up games. And again, this is the arcade version. I can tell based on the art on this ranking here. This was totally Turtle Power. And this Turtles in Time here, this is the arcade as well. Those are both totally Turtle Power. Peak Turtles right there. Next, we have Shredder's Revenge, guys. This game came out last year. I was extremely excited for it because to me, based on everything that I had watched, the developer interviews, the trailers, the write-ups, is that this game was going to bring Turtles back to its core, back to its peak, what it was in the late 80s, early 90s. So it was basically going to be a continuation of where Turtles left off in the 16-bit era. And this company, his name was .emu, they absolutely nailed it. I cannot recommend this game enough. I have it digitally. I have it on Switch. I have it on PS4. I have it sealed. That's one of those games to me. Getting the physical edition is probably going to be a smart move to hold on to if you have some extra money and you can just buy the game and not open it. That'll be a holy grail game because I don't think it saw mass production because it came out as a digital only title, and it did well enough that they brought out a physical edition. So again, I can't say enough good things. The playable characters in the game too. I mean, dude, you could be Splinter in the game. You could fight as April O'Neil. You could fight as Casey Jones, dude. Like, this game really, it kind of warmed my heart. And I say that meaning, like, I'm playing this, dude. I'm just like, I'm brought back to the good old days. I couldn't believe, like, how well they nailed it. So this is by far Turtle Power. This is peak Turtles right here. And again, this just came out. So if you haven't played it, I cannot recommend it enough. Okay, next we have, again, this is one of the many Ninja Turtles reboots. These games absolutely sucked. If I recall, this one was really bad. Like, really bad. If I recall the hit window, the collision detection, meaning like when you go and like hit someone with your bow or your staff, you think you hit them and you should hit them because based on the animation, you're hitting the character, but it wouldn't register the hit, if I recall. And again, it doesn't really matter. Most of these Turtles games outside of the 16-bit era were just total crap. So this one's going anchovy pizza. And if you like the game, I'm sorry. Leave a comment and let me know if I got this one wrong. If I did, maybe we'll go back and replay it. Okay, next we have Ninja Turtles 2, the arcade game for regular Nintendo. This was awesome because this was a port of the arcade game for NES, and they did it perfectly. Honestly, like they took all the power you could get. They squeezed everything you can get out of the regular Nintendo into this game. And you probably can't see it in this small screenshot, but on the actual box art of this game, if you bought the game, there was a coupon back in the day for a free personal pan pizza at Pizza Hut. Dude, how can you go wrong with that, right? I mean, you literally get the game. And like we used to do back in the day, like parents take you to go get the game. They're driving, of course. You're in the back seat. You're opening up the game, pulling out the instruction manual. And all of us old school dudes know when you pull it out, the first thing you got to do is smell the instruction manual. And again, it was just a time back then. you had to smell the instruction manual. It just had that smell that was just so classic. But inside there was also a coupon for a free personal pan pizza. So it's like, hey, Mom, Dad, can we go get a pizza? No. Well, what if I told you it was free? What do you mean? Show them the coupon. Read through the fine details. It's legit free. No purchase necessary. You don't have to buy another meal. It's not buy one, get one free. It's like growing up in the 80s, 90s where, if I recall, it was like the book club where you read a certain amount of books and you basically get you get coupons for free Pizza Hut pizzas. I forget. They gave it out for different reasons, but it was rad. And this game was amazing. To me, this was peak Turtles right here. This is definitely Turtle power. And as you can see with this list, like there are some Turtles games here that you absolutely need to play. Oh, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Smash Up. Not good. Not anchovy pizza, but bossa nova. Then we had Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Tournament Fighters. So if I recall, this game came out on NES, Sega, and Super Nintendo, and they all varied a little bit. I don't believe they all had the same developer. Obviously the same publisher, but I think there was different developer for the Sega and Super and the NES one. This is like Street Fighter with Ninja Turtles characters, and Street Fighter was all the buzz back in the day, so it made sense for Konami to want to jump on that bandwagon and see if they can make some extra money. This game is available on the Ninja Turtles Cowabunga collection. I believe all three are, so you can play the Sega, Super, or NES version. And it's totally worth a trip down memory lane to play these games. Again, if you're trying to buy this game loose for Sega, Super, NES, it's going to cost you a lot of money. I would not do it. It's not worth it. It's just not. But it's totally worth playing on the Cowabunga collection. So I'll go ahead and give this game a radical ranking. Now we have Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 3, The Manhattan Project. And this is a pretty rare NES game. I have it over here on the shelf, but I have it because I got it back in the day, not because I bought it recently. I don't know what it goes for, but I know it's expensive now. And this was basically, it was a continuation of the same formula that worked in Turtles 2. But again, it was just that. It was more of the same. So by the time Turtles 3 for NES came out, it was really good, but it didn't do anything different than Turtles 2 outside of having, different level, different scenery. The gameplay was pretty much the same. And I do recall the soundtrack being pretty rad. This game, to me, this is pretty easy. It's not Turtle Power. Only so many games can be. But it's definitely not rad. It's totally Cowabunga, dude. It's a really good game. Totally worth playing. You should play everything radding up. And then we have Turtles in Time. And Turtles in Time to me is peak 16-bit Ninja Turtles. This was the best Ninja Turtles for the 16-bit era. And what's crazy is if I recall, this game came out in 1993. So if we look at this list, in all honesty, the next good or the next amazing, as you can see, because it's on the Turtle Power ranking, Shredder's Revenge came out last year. So 2022. Turtles in Time, and you're going to see I put it here under Turtle Power, came out in 93. It took almost 30... Am I doing the math? 30 years? Holy shit. Yeah, 30. It took almost 30 years for us to get a great Turtles game again, which was Shredder's Revenge. So, as you can see, like, it hasn't been a smooth road for Turtles fans in video games, right? Now, that's not to say we don't have great games, because we do. We have all these Turtle Power and Cowabunga games. The Radical games are worth playing. They're not amazing, though. Like I said, your Radical is going to be your C. They're pretty average, right? But they're worth playing, okay? But these Turtle Power and Cowabunga games, man, all of these games, sans Shredder's Revenge, are on the Cowabunga collection, which you can get for $40. You can get the physical edition for $40 if you want. And then you can get it on, of course, the online storefronts. And I believe it's already been on sale before. So if you want, wait for it to go on sale. It's totally worth picking up. I absolutely love pretty much all the games that are on the Cowabunga collection, sans the Game Boy games, because, again, they're not great. But on that Cowabunga collection, you're going to get all 3 Game Boy games, Turtles 1, 2, and 3 for NES, the Hyperstone Heist for Sega. You're going to get Tournament Fighters for all 3 platforms, and you're going to get Turtles in Time for Super Nintendo, and you get the arcade versions of Turtles in Time and the Ninja Turtles original arcade game. So really, you can't go wrong. If you're totally into Turtles, you probably already know about this. But there's a lot of other stuff too. There's a lot of original artwork that you can't find on Google unless someone's went on to the game and scanned it and uploaded it to the internet. But there's a lot of really cool stuff here for Turtles fans if you buy the Cowabunga collection. So again, I can't recommend it enough. Buy the Cowabunga collection if you haven't. And I will give a shout out for sure. It's not on this list, but Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Rescue Palooza is a fan-made game. Google it. If you can find a way to play it, you totally should. You should be able to play it on your PC. I would obviously play it with some sort of gamepad, but totally go onto YouTube, check it out. This is a fan-made game, and it is amazing. I think I would put it under Turtle Power tier if it was on this. So, again, if you've never heard of it, it's called Rescue Palooza, and totally worth playing. So, again, thanks, guys, for tuning in. And if you're new to my channel, if you've never been here before, please subscribe. I'm a new YouTuber. And look forward to many more game ranking lists. Again, I've been playing games since the 80s, so I do believe I am qualified to talk about all of these video games. So again, thanks guys for tuning in. I hope you have a great day.